Ayman Khan here for Seconds Out. It's a pleasure to be joined by James Ali Bashir as we near Usyk versus Dubois this weekend. James, how you doing?
I'm doing pretty good.
Yeah, in Poland no less as well. You've been to Poland before?
Yes, I've been to Poland a number of times.
Mm-hmm.
Mostly Warsaw, but I've been here a number of times.
Number of times indeed, and of course we know you for working with Alexander Usyk as well too in the past, having that relationship with him. I just want to start with your relationship with Alexander Usyk. When did you first meet him, and how would you describe your relationship with him?
I met him a few years back. I can't specifically say when, but I met him a little over 10 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
You know, over 10 years ago.
And how would you describe your time with Alexander Usyk?
It was pleasant.
Yeah.
It was pleasant.
What type of fighter, in that time that you had with him, how would you describe him as a fighter, having seen him grow?
I would describe him as the consummate professional. You never can underestimate what Alexander Usyk is on his mind and what he may do leading up to a fight and in the fight. You can't underestimate him.
As boxing fans, what we tend to do is we tend to glorify fighters. And look, we obviously have seen the skills and the fights that Alexander Usyk has been able to show us in the ring. But
I'd like to think that I created or added on to what he already possessed.
Mm-hmm.
Why else would he hire me?
Mm-hmm.
So.
But during that time with him, what did you work on with him?
I just worked on enhancing what he already possessed.
Mm-hmm.
I think that he has a natural talent,
right,
a natural ability, a natural desire. He's the consummate professional.
He's been able to translate the fleet feet, the combinations from the cruiserweight to the heavyweight division. Why do you think that is? Why do you think he's been able to do that so well?
Well, he's an enigma. He's born the same day as Muhammad Ali, so maybe something in that span, something happens, But he has mastered it, and he does it well,
Is he as good as people say?
Yes, he is.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, he is. We don't underestimate him in any kind of way. I'm here working with Daniel Dubois, and I'm happy about it, Alexander Usyk understands the nature of the business that we're in. This is boxing, and it's just like an attorney or a physician. One client moves on, and then another client comes along and hires you, So he understands the nature of the business that we're in. I'm with Daniel Dubois. I'm pushing Daniel Dubois to win this fight.
Move forward to Daniel Dubois in a second. Can you describe how and why the relationship ended between you and Usyk?
No, I can't. I really don't understand. I really don't know. We had just won the world championship together. And after one title defense, he just sent me an email or text or something saying, "Oh, your services are no longer needed." So I really don't understand to this day why. It doesn't matter to me, because one fighter cannot describe the kind of trainer that I've been and the contributions that I've made to the sport of boxing. I mean, I've been in the sport for 55 years, so no one fighter can really point out, who and what I am in the sport of boxing. So life goes on.
Are you looking to speak to Usyk this week?
Yeah, I'll speak to Usyk. Usyk, I'm sure in my mind that it won't affect the relationship, other than something personal, something that he won't show any emotion when he finds out that I'm there, if he doesn't already know.
Let's move forward to this weekend. You drafted into the camp to assist and aid Daniel Dubois. When it comes to any fighter, any team looking to defeat Alexander Usyk, were you expecting that call?
No, I think that the trainer for Daniel Dubois, Don Charles, I think that he wanted every avenue, every base covered. So he reached out for me and says, "Hey, can you come into our camp?" He invited me into the camp, which is very, 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 very unusual in the sport of boxing, because everybody in boxing feels and thinks that they know. But here's a guy that he's a trainer for the heavyweight champion of the world. He says, you know what? We're going to bring Bashir in to add on to what we already have. We're training, but what harm will it do to bring him in? And I think that was a very profound move to make that decision. Because I feel that I do have some things to offer Daniel Dubois and Team Dubois.
When did you first meet Don Charles?
I met Don Charles years ago. We've been loosely associated with each other over the years. Time to time, we'd talk on the phone and we'd communicate with each other, but we never compared notes like we're comparing right now.
Yeah.
And this is the start of something new. We're going to go on. We're going to try to continue this. There's never been an alliance between Americans and Britons. So with this, we're going to be the first. We're going to try to go from here and build on this.
For your eye, for your radar, before you were drafted into the camp, what were your thoughts on Daniel Dubois as a fighter?
I thought Daniel Dubois was a green fighter, which he is. He's only 25 years old. He's only had 19 or 20 fights, I believe. So, there's much to be desired. He's a young guy, so he has a lot to learn, And with Don Charles coming in at this time, and then for them to put Don Charles in versus Usyk with Dubois, that's a tall mountain, in a short time. He's only been with the Dubois roughly 10 weeks or so. And it's a lot to ask of a trainer trying to reconstruct, if you will, Daniel Dubois. So it's a tall order, not an impossible order, but a tall order.
What are the elements of your game, your skills, your experience do you feel you've been able to impart on the team and on to Daniel specifically?
I sure hope that I have. I really do.
What parts of your game have you been able to impart in this training camp? What do you feel Daniel's picked up on well?
I don't want to speak about that right now until after the fight. We can talk about this after the fight. I don't want to impart anything that might help those in the listening audience right now, specifically those who are going to see this thing that's related to Usyk.
Fair enough, I understand that, I respect that. How about Daniel Dubois' skills as a fighter? A lot of people talk about his punch power. You must be excited to have been working with that punch power too.
I've worked big punches before. Lennox Lewis, Vladimir Klitschko, and Daniel Dubois ranks right up there with the best of them. He has great punching power. I think that he can go all the way with that kind of punching power. He has that Sonny Liston, George Foreman kind of punching power,
Is it the equalizer?
Alexander Usyk takes a good punch. Alexander Usyk is like I said, he's an enigma. He's not to be taken lightly by anybody, any force. He's not to be taken lightly.
To do that, you'll need to turn off airplane mode.
Okay, I'll do that.
James, a lot of people will look at the amateur fights that Usyk has had, especially the one against Beterbiev, to be able to drop him to the body. Do you feel that, in a general sense, that's a key to getting the victory this weekend? The body shots.
In boxing, I've learned not to judge one fight as opposed and compared to another.
Yeah.
Just going in with a blank slate coming into the fight, and we're going to build on our avenues from there on. We're just going to build, I think that it was some things that he did in those fights, some flaws, but some things doesn't change. We're just going to go into the fight with an open slate of mind and go out and do our job.
You called Alexander Usyk, and a lot of people call him an enigma. inside and outside the ring. The mentality games, the mind games have started and are being played. How big of a mind game player is Alexander Usyk heading into a fight?
He's a master at it. He's a master at playing mind games. You know, and he backs it up inside the ring. So he's not to be underestimated in any way, form, or fashion. I respect that.
What did you take from his rapping at the press conference?
It's typical of Alexander Usyk. You never know what he's going to do.
Yeah.
You know, he's that kind of guy. You know, he's very flexible. He adjusts to any situation, sort of like a chameleon. You know, he's not going to be intimidated.
Will the pressure of having to perform in front of what will be as home a crowd as he can get right now, what with the war going on in his home country, will that affect him anyway?
No, I don't believe so. No, I don't believe it. That's why I was brought in as an expert. I was with this man for 3 years, and I understand him. No, he's not going to be intimidated. He's not going to be influenced by the crowd. He's a professional. He's a professional.
From the time that you were with him to the time that you've had away from him now, do you see much difference in his game between then and now? Has he developed more as a fighter since then?
He's Usyk. He didn't add on. He didn't take off. He's Usyk. He's Usyk all of the time. It's hard for anybody to come in and try to influence Alexander Usyk. Usyk is Usyk all of the time. Anywhere, anytime, Usyk is Usyk.
I want to get your thoughts on a couple of other things before I bring it back to this specific camp, or just about the heavyweight division in general. I wonder what you make of Anthony Joshua, who you worked with as well, heading into his fight with Alexander Usyk, his performance against Robert Helenius.
I thought that Anthony was a bit tentative. I thought that he could have done the job more efficiently, but I'm not in the ring. I'm not taking the punches, so he might have a different spin on that, a different perspective, if you will. But I thought that he was a bit tentative. One thing is certain, he can't fight Deontay Wilder the same style. He can't fight Deontay Wilder like that. He's got to go out there and establish himself better and more clearly with Deontay Wilder. But I thought that Anthony took more shots from Helenius than I imagined that he would take. He was getting hit specifically with a jab. He was just standing there in front of the jab, just taking a jab. You can see the effects of the fight on his face.
Yeah.
You know, so I thought that he's a bit tentative, and I think that he has to step his game up to fight Deontay Wilder.
You were drafted into the camp for Anthony Joshua in his fight against Alexander Usyk. Do you feel that he was able to pick up what you were imparting to him and affect it against Usyk?
Well, I wasn't there that long to make that kind of impact on him. I think that he did himself an injustice by not having me there. I thought he did himself a great injustice by hiring Robert Garcia. Here's a guy that never trained a heavyweight. And training heavyweights is far different from training any other weight. Especially Robert Garcia had a reputation for building smaller fighters, lightweights, junior lightweights. You know, it just didn't make sense to me, you know. And the way the camp was set up, so I didn't miss it. I just came in. I think I stayed a week, maybe 2 weeks, and then I left. You know, because I just didn't think that the camp was suited for a fighter of that stature. In fact, I even questioned it. Why don't you do the same thing that Vladimir Klitschko and Lennox Lewis did? They constructed their own camps where they can have focus, concentration, and surrounded by purely professionals. But the atmosphere that he was training in, it didn't make sense to me. So I left.
Can you compare the difference between Joshua as a fighter and Daniel Dubois as a fighter heading into this Usyk fight?
Daniel Dubois is easier to train. Daniel Dubois is focused on what his trainer is teaching him, what his trainer is telling him. Where Anthony is a worldly person. He's here, he's there, he's talking to this person, he's talking to that person, he's talking to, Daniel Dubois is more concentrated, more focused on what he has to do. I think that Daniel Dubois is in a better place because of that, because he listens to what his trainer is telling him. And he's not affected. He's not surrounded by a lot of people in general telling him, you need to do this, you need to do that, you need to do this. He's affected. Anthony Joshua is a very nice guy, and that niceness sometimes can affect a fighter inside the ring. Because those people who are telling those things, most of them have never been in a ring. So, how could they relate to what you're going through in the ring? Mm-hmm. Whereas Daniel Dubois focuses on what his trainer is telling him, I like that about him.
In a general sense, look, you'll have the expertise, but we saw at heavyweight, Usyk have the most problems against Derek Chisora, who set about him, didn't give him a moment to breathe, really kind of forced and put the pressure on Alexander Usyk to make him make a few mistakes, make him take a few more risks. Is that the way to beat someone of his ability?
I think that Daniel Dubois is a big, strong guy, and I think that it's no secret that he has to use his youth and his punching power to make the difference in this fight. He cannot stand around looking at Alexander Usyk, because if he does, Usyk will do a paint job on him. Yeah. So he has to be concentrated. He has to be focused. He has to be willing to roll the dice, so to speak. Take the action to Alexander Usyk. Do not give him a moment's rest. That's his best chance of causing Usyk to make mistakes.
We look at him as one of the greats, a modern great on his way to getting into the Hall of Fame. Is he about as a complete a fighter as you've seen in the ring?
Yes, but I think that a lot of this comes from modern trainers. Modern trainers is a lot of BS. I think there's a lot of flaws in today's fighters as opposed to yesterday's fighters. I think the techniques and the knowledge itself is gone. They're not as apparent today as they were yesteryear. You go back to the 40s, the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, the trainership was different. The knowledge that was being applied to the boxer is different. And today's boxers are lacking that. You have a lot of flash in the pan so-called trainers. And I watch. Boxing is my business. Like I said, I've been here 55 years, and I watch and I observe different things in the trainership when the guys are working with the boxers, and I see so many flaws, And I said, and they're leading these guys into fights, and the boxers themselves, they got to recognize that my trainer is lacking. You understand? Because they're the ones that's going in that ring. They're the ones that's putting their lives on the line with inept trainers. So
it's fantasy for sure, but I'd love to get your opinion on this. How do you feel a Alexander Usyk Evander Holyfield fight would have played out if the two could have ever met in the ring?
I think Alexander Usyk would have spanked Holyfield. Holyfield always had problems with slick, crafty boxers. Alexander Usyk would have been a nightmare for Evander Holyfield. Did you see Evander Holyfield box James Toney, Chris Bird, Larry Donald? Those three fighters. All you got to do is look at those three fights, and you can imagine what Alexander Usyk would have did to Evander Holyfield. Holyfield's a rough, tough guy if you're fighting him. But Usyk is a scientist. he's there 1 minute, and the next minute he's in Oklahoma somewhere. You don't know what he's gonna do. So I think Alexander Usyk beats Holyfield easy.
I'm going to get your thoughts on this as well. Look, WBC heavyweight champion, lineal heavyweight champion, is taking on Francis Ngannou in a crossover fight, which a lot of boxing fans disappointed about.
I think that Tyson Fury, and there are people that gives me a lot of stick about this, but I think that Alexander Usyk beats Tyson Fury.
Yeah.
I think Tyson Fury does not want anything to do with Alexander Usyk. He says, "Oh, I'll do this, I'll do that, I'll do this, I'll do that." I don't think so. I think that Alexander Usyk would give him fits inside of a ring, because he's big, he's cumbersome, It's not easy for Tyson Fury to box with a magician like Alexander Usyk.
James, cognizant of the time, so it's been a great pleasure to speak to you. I'll just leave the final word with you. What happens on Saturday night, Usyk vs. Dubois?
I'm really hoping for a knockout. I want to put Alexander Usyk out of his misery early, Within the first 6-7 rounds, Daniel Dubois' punching power will make the difference, Youth is something that he holds in reserve, but it's the punching power, I know that Usyk is going to come to fight, but Daniel Dubois is going to come to fight too, and I hope that somewhere along the line between those rounds, 1 and 7, that Daniel Dubois catches him. If he catches Usyk in between that time or any other time, he's got problems, It's a tough fight. It's a tough fight for both guys. It's a tough fight for Daniel Dubois because Usyk has so much experience. But it's also a tough fight for Alexander Usyk because of Daniel Dubois' punching power. So it's a risky fight for both guys.
James, absolute pleasure to speak to you. Thank you for giving me some of your time. Thanks for speaking to Seconds Out, sir. Much appreciated.
You're welcome.